Part 68. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 673. This time, the commotion was unprecedented. Originally, the appearance of the demon corpse was very scary, but when they found that they could control it, the pressure on the geniuses was much less. At least after being controlled, they would not kill people casually. As for how to compete, that is naturally a later story. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. There are hundreds of demon tombs, and at least more than 70 people have comprehended them, so these more than 70 people are still very excited. They can't wait to control their own demon corpses. With demon corpses, they have the right to speak, and no matter how the situation changes next, they can take the initiative. Get out of the way first, so as not to be crushed to death like Yi Wangsheng. When there was movement in the sky, people still quickly retreated and made a lot of space. Their eyes were brighter, as if the fear of facing the demon corpses at the beginning had long disappeared, and now the demon corpses seemed to have become their weapons for fighting. At this moment, bronze coffins really fell from the sky. And there were indeed hundreds of them. It can be said that they were densely packed and extremely terrifying. Zhang Zizai could also see clearly that the hundreds of coffins fell down with a bang. When they touched the ground, they smashed directly on the ground, and a small part of them directly inserted into the ground. Boom boom boom. For a while, the ground shook, and the whole land seemed to collapse and sink. After stabilizing, these bronze coffins were like a jungle. They looked weird and creepy. Click. Then, the coffin doors opened one by one, and the vast demonic energy rushed out violently, reaching a level that was enough to suffocate people. Boom boom boom. With a loud bang, the coffin doors fell to the ground, and demon corpses crawled out of the coffins one by one. As expected, they were the same as before. Although they looked different, they were undoubtedly very scary and ugly. After a long time, they had green faces and fangs, and mucus kept dripping from their teeth. Such a scene should have scared people to death, but now the geniuses were not afraid. Those who had the black tripod in their hands were ready to try. In fact, most people's eyes were attracted by one of the coffins. It was a blood-red coffin. There were a lot of dried blood on it, which looked so real. The volume of that coffin was more than 5 times that of the other coffins, which meant that there were at least 5 times more demon corpses inside. The doors of other coffins have been opened, but the blood-red coffin has not moved. At this time, other demon corpses have crawled out of it. Those who have the black tripod quickly go up and take out the black tripod to control their demon corpses. Those who don't have the black tripod can only hide away. Basically, only the best 100 people among tens of thousands of people have such luck. Shenxiao and Lingxian are very busy, because they have too many demon tombs to comprehend. They use their own demon corpses to open the way and get close to the demon corpses that belong to them. After being protected, they are at least safe. But others are different. Hundreds of demon corpses suddenly appear, and the scene is still very chaotic. Some people haven't found their own demon corpses yet, and his demon corpses start to kill others. You know, demon corpses are very scary before they are controlled. Once chaos occurs, it is a fatal threat. For example, Shenxiao can only control the second demon corpse for a short time, and the other 3 demon corpses begin to wreak havoc at this time. When someone is controlling the demon corpse, he is suddenly slapped to death. The black tripod also flew out and fell into someone else's hands. Such tragedies actually happen very frequently. Some demon corpses are not controlled by anyone, and those people are finally scared and start to panic and run for their lives while watching. Go. Run. Life and death broke out again in this. This scene was within Zhang Zizai's expectations. He was still waiting for the blood-red coffin to open. The 9 of them were protected by the demon corpses, and even if the scene was chaotic now, they would not have a big problem. In the chaotic situation, Zhang Zizai finally waited for the blood-red coffin to open. At first, it was just a gap, but at this time, a huge blood-red palm stretched out from the gap. The blood-red palm actually pressed the coffin door directly, and then slowly pushed it open until the coffin door was opened. This process made Zhang Zizai stunned for a while. Such actions, not hurried or slow, are different from other impatient demon corpses. Often such situations represent a very critical thing, that is, wisdom. He didn't think too much, and directly took the blood-red small tripod, and the demon corpse Tugyuwu led him to the blood-red coffin. The blood in the coffin was surging, and a huge figure emerged from it. It was a giant with a blood-red body, covered with blood-colored scales, and a pair of huge horns on his head, like a bull's head. He had a pair of blood-red eyes, very indifferent. When he appeared, the whole world seemed to be dead silent. All the demon corpses dared not move in front of him, including the demon corpse Tugyuwu, who was already controlled by Zhang Zizai. Tugyuwu's height was only up to the knees of the blood-colored demon corpse. In front of the blood-colored demon corpse, he was like a baby. After the blood-colored demon corpse appeared, it was not manic at all, and the world fell into dead silence. Zhang Zizai took out the blood-colored small tripod and pointed it at him, waiting for himself to control the king of demon corpses. But he didn't expect that the blood-colored small tripod didn't light up for a long time. This was clearly something obtained from the ancient demon Tongtian's tomb, but it seemed to have no reaction. Is he a lowly servant? Zhang Zizai was startled and changed a blood-colored small tripod. But there was still no reaction. He was depressed. What was going on? Just when he was depressed, the blood-colored demon corpse suddenly lowered his head and saw him. At that moment, Zhang Zizai felt a fatal crisis. The other party's eyes were like a living existence. He was completely different from other demon corpses. "Protect me," this was his order to Guduwu. At this time, he was horrified. This change came too suddenly. Guduwu groaned, lowered his head, and knelt on the ground. Zhang Zizai could only escape by himself. Fortunately, the blood-colored demon corpse didn't seem to care about him much, but lowered his body, picked up Tugyuwu with both hands, roared, and then he opened his bloody mouth and bit off Tugyuwu's head directly, and swallowed it into his stomach. Zhang Zizai felt cold all over, because the bloody demon corpse saw him again. 6 chapters updated. No more O's. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 674. Letting this bloody demon corpse Tongtian stare at him, he really felt like he was dead. Boom. The bloody demon corpse threw Tugyuwu's headless demon corpse to the ground, and the earth trembled again for a moment. Everyone was suffocating as they watched this scene, watching the headless Tugyuwu even stand up, but still kneeling and trembling in front of the bloody demon corpse. The surging blood and demonic energy swept endlessly, even penetrating into everyone's heart, making people only remember one thing at this time, that is, fleeing in panic. Since the appearance of the bloody demon corpse, the demon corpses that were originally easy to control began to become uncontrollable. This is a very dangerous signal. One demon corpse can sweep away, let alone now there are more than 100. As for Zhang Zizai, who was closest to the bloody demon corpse and surrounded by hundreds of demon corpses in the center, everyone could only think that he was dead, because in such a situation, it was basically impossible to survive. Zhang Zizai himself thought so. Only at this moment, the bloody demon corpse's sight shifted away from him, and he got a chance to breathe. At this juncture, of course, he didn't say anything, and had long since ignored the demon corpse Tugyuwu, but turned around and left, directly performing the earth escape magic technique, rushing out of the encirclement of the demon corpse at the fastest speed. During the time he was acting, all the demon corpses circled around the bloody demon corpse, and did not make any moves for the time being, otherwise Zhang Zizai would not have been able to escape. His body was too small compared to the demon corpse. Before Zhang Zizai, all those who tried to control the demon corpse realized the danger at this time and escaped from it. The one called Zhang Zizai must be dead in the crowd. Princess Shenjiu gritted her teeth slightly and said to Zhang Fanchen beside her. He'd better hold on for a while. Zhang Fanchen looked indifferent. When Zhang Zizai's red tripod failed to control the bloody demon corpse, he couldn't help laughing, secretly saying, "It's not certain whether it's a blessing or a curse to let you take the things back." Seeing that Zhang Zizai's demon corpse had its head gnawed off, he laughed even more happily. However, the demon corpse was obviously going to riot at this time, so he also hurried to escape. In his eyes, Zhang Zizai might have died at this time. At this moment, a shocking roar suddenly came from behind him. It was definitely the voice of the bloody demon corpse. It seemed that he had issued a certain order. In an instant, hundreds of demon corpses were directly rioting, and violent aura began to sweep. Suddenly, a dazzling red light burst out from the eyes of the bloody demon corpse, spreading in a ring around. Almost everyone was unable to dodge and was stained by the red light. This red light swept over tens of thousands of people in a very short time. The same thing happened to Zhang Zizai. After the red light swept over, he found that his skin was red. The red formed a strange symbol, which finally condensed at the center of his eyebrows and blocked his totem. His body didn't feel strange, but he couldn't expel the bloody symbol. Moreover, the symbol gradually became brighter, just like a red lantern hanging on his forehead. Zhang Zizai looked up and saw that at least 30,000 people had a red lantern hanging on their heads, and the dots looked like a sea of fire. They all looked at the red light on others in great horror. This was obviously a marked red light, which gave everyone an ominous premonition. Zhang Zizai found that in fact, more than 2/3 of the people had red light on their heads, and even more. There were also some people who didn't have red light on their heads. After the red light of the bloody demon corpse swept over them, it didn't leave any mark. What does this mean? Zhang Zizai quickly gathered with Li Zixiao and the others. Shen Xiao and Ling Xian also returned here. Zhang Zizai looked carefully and found that except for him, Shen Xiao and Ling Xian had red light at the center of their eyebrows, but the 6 people in their hidden dragon realm did not have it. Why are there only 3 of you? Suemo widened his eyes and did not understand for a while. They looked at others again, and Li Zixiao suddenly frowned and said, "It seems that all those who are not up to the 7th level of Tianyuan realm have it. Above the 7th level of Tianyuan realm, none of them have it. What does this mean?" Zhang Zizai also found that those with red light marks on their heads were all below the 6th level of Tianyuan realm. His realm was the 5th level of Tianyuan realm, so naturally it was also within this range. Just when they were very confused, the answer was immediately revealed. In the midst of the lightning, the eyes of all the demon corpses suddenly turned red. They were completely out of control. The control of the black small tripod was completely ineffective. The hundreds of demon corpses directly became demons. Under the roar of the bloody demon corpse, they all moved. They rushed out in all directions, and the blood-red eyes directly locked the geniuses of the totem world. Everyone had fled long ago, generally far away from the demon corpses, and most of them were already wandering on the edge of the blood river, ready to rush into the blood river at any time. But even so, the speed of the demon corpses was still terrifyingly fast, especially when hundreds of demon corpses were running at the same time. The scene was simply explosive. Boom boom boom. The demon corpses ran, the ground shook violently, and drastic changes suddenly broke out. Some people just didn't know whether they were alive or dead. At this time, they were very close, and naturally became the target of the demon corpses in this change. The demon corpses came forward in an instant, and people and horses fell down for a while. Under the engulfment of the demonic energy, screams continued for a while, and it directly became a hell on earth. "Let's go," Li Zixiao shouted and activated the 9-dragon battle formation again to let everyone leave together. Anyone who stayed here waiting for an opportunity would be a fool. Zhang Zizai didn't have time to waste any more time. After all, the bloody demon corpse had stared at him several times, and he had already felt creepy. The 9 of them were very fast. In this kind of escape, they didn't need to be faster than the demon corpse. They only needed to be faster than others to be safe for the time being. It would take a certain amount of time for the demon corpses to kill all the people. Zhang Zizai. While escaping, Li Zixiao suddenly stared at him with a trembling look in his eyes. "What's wrong?" Zhang Zizai asked. "Look back, the demon corpses seem to only attack those with red light on their heads," Li Zixiao said in horror. Zhang Zizai was shocked. He looked back and observed for a while and found that those who were above the 7th level of Tianyuan realm, even if they couldn't dodge, the demon corpses would go around them and didn't touch them at all. On the contrary, those with red light on their heads, no matter how far they fled, the demon corpses would chase them and engulf them with monstrous demonic energy. Really, Zhang Zizai was depressed. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 675. Is this a kind of screening? Screen out those above the 7th level of Tianyuan realm. Eliminate the others directly? Or even kill them? Shen Xiao looked unhappy. She felt that this was very unfair. If they had been screened like this earlier, wouldn't it be enough to not let those below the 6th level of Tianyuan realm in? Why did they have to kill these people at this time? Now it seems that the 6 of them in Kanglong realm are safe, but Zhang Zizai is in danger. Seeing those totem warriors with red light on their heads, each one seemed like a street rat, being chopped and cut by the demon corpses, and died one by one in screams. If this is not hell, what is it? If their bodies had not been swallowed directly, it is estimated that blood would have flowed into a river long ago. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Such a mark is indeed very unfair. However, Zhang Zizai really has nothing to say. This is the game of the ancient gods. After all, they are just pawns in it. When they were about to cross the Blood River, they happened to meet a group of people from the Holy Emperor Totem world. Zhang Zizai was smiling, and he had already seen the red light on Zhang Zizai's head above the 3 of them. Zhang Zizai, enjoy it, the wind and water will turn, and it makes sense to tell you not to laugh too early, haha. Zhang Fanchen couldn't help laughing. It's really retribution. Princess Shenjiao showed a gloating expression. Then your Holy Emperor Totem world will also have a lot of people die, Zhang Zizai responded. After all, at least half of them were below the 6th level of Tianyuan realm. He could still laugh, which was really heartless. When the nest is destroyed, how can there be eggs intact? This has nothing to do with you, you just need to know that he is dead. They looked indifferent, and staggered with Zhang Zizai, each entered the Blood River and began to flee. At the moment of entering the Blood River, Zhang Zizai looked back. In this short period of time, at least more than 8,000 totem warriors had disappeared in the ancient demon tomb. They didn't even leave their souls. Zhang Zizai gritted his teeth. If this continued, more people would die. What do the people who designed the game want? Zhang Zizai looked up. The golden roulette was still flying in the sky. The figures on it were motionless. What would their expressions be now as they watched the miserable death of the common people? Could it be that this is really raising goo, so that we fight each other, and in the end only a few can get good fortune, and the other tens of thousands of people will have to die here? Then this is not just the demon tomb, but our cemetery. He felt a little sad in his heart, but also very angry. This anger was not directed at Zhang Fanchen, but at everything that was happening now. All those who were marked with red light must be cleared before the next stage of the test will begin. Therefore, as long as there is a red light on your head, don't resist, and don't waste other people's time. Some people even shouted like this. The demon corpses didn't pay attention to them. They were not in a hurry to escape, but swaggered among the demon corpses, watching others die and disappear. It is human nature to be indifferent to things that don't concern you. Hundreds of demon corpses roamed around, chasing everywhere. Once, one demon corpse, Xuanhuan, was about to catch up with Zhang Ziyi in their 9-dragon battle formation. However, this ancient demon tomb was sealed. After being marked by the blood-colored demon corpses, each of them was like the sun in the dark night, so dazzling that they could not escape the palm of the demon corpses. No matter how these people escaped, the fact was very obvious. After the demon corpses dealt with the others, no matter how far they escaped, as long as they were still in the ancient demon tomb, they would be found. At this time, hundreds of demon corpses had completely separated. They plunged into the blood river. The tentacles of the blood river could not stop them. Their speed was dozens of times that of ordinary Tianyuan realm below the 6th level. As long as they were locked by their eyes, they basically could not escape the fate of annihilation. For a time, the ancient demon tomb was filled with grief. The geniuses marked with red light let out shrill howls and desperate cries. They struggled, shed tears, and regretted, but it was useless. Every time Zhang Ziyi looked back, he could see many people disappearing in this way, while those who were not marked were watching the show. After all, for them, everyone else was a competitor. This cleansing will definitely be very thorough. The demon corpses have been scattered in each demon tomb, so that no matter where they escape, there will be demon corpses waiting for them to fall into the tiger's mouth. It is estimated that at least 30,000 people will die in the ancient demon tomb in less than a quarter of an hour. This number can make people tremble when they think about it. After all, this is not a number, but 30,000 living lives. Everyone has their own relatives, their own unique experiences and thoughts, and their prospects for the future. They can come here, and they are all geniuses who can comprehend the starry sky and star monuments. In their totem world, they are almost unique, but here, they are like ants struggling in front of giants. Countless screams rang out in every corner of this ancient demon tomb. The fragile prey knelt and wailed in front of the demon corpse hunter, but the demon corpse had no emotions. Their eyes were bloodshot, and the surging demon energy all over their bodies directly engulfed them, leaving no bones. The scene was so tragic, but Zhang Ziyi couldn't care about others. Now he had to fight for the lives of the three of them, because all three of them had been marked. The red light at the center of the eyebrows was so bright, like a bright light in the darkness. They were the fastest runners, but the demon corpse's foul and gloomy breath was already behind them, indicating that the demon corpse would catch up sooner or later. They mechanically captured prey, and Zhang Ziyi was indeed the fastest, but he was almost certain that after the hundreds of demon corpses had dealt with the other marked people, they would come to find Zhang Ziyi sooner or later. How to face it then? Now it seemed like there was a sword hanging over my head, ready to chop it off at any time. It seems that I will die here. Shen Xiao pursed his lips, his eyes a little melancholy. It's okay, if we can die together, it's fate. In the Yellow Springs hell, I can still hug you left and right. Zhang Ziyi smiled. In fact, he was also trying to ease the atmosphere. It's a beautiful thought, but there is no Yellow Springs. When people die, they disappear into smoke. Shen Xiao rolled his eyes at him. Zhang Ziyi came forward and whispered in her ear, let's take a look at the situation first. If it doesn't work, I will immediately open the evolution realm and go in to avoid the limelight. If life and death are unknown, there is no need to worry about the exposure of the evolution realm. Yet, with the evolution realm, there is at least hope of survival. However, the specific operation would be more risky, and now I don't know how long I can hide. Where is there a place that can allow me to safely open the evolution world for a quarter of an hour? Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 676. Come this way. Zhang Zizai called Li Zixiao. Although Li Zixiao didn't know where he was going, he still followed him. After a few steps, Zhang Zizai came to the tomb of the lowly servant. He remembered that apart from the bloody demon corpse and the ordinary demon corpse, there seemed to be no other demon corpses. He was wondering if there would be any changes in the tomb of the lowly servant. The tomb of the lowly servant was too small, so no one escaped here, and no demon corpse came here for the time being. This was a place where he could try to open the evolution world. Zhang Zizai came here to gamble that no demon corpse would come here within a quarter of an hour. Once interrupted, it might take another quarter of an hour, and there would definitely not be so much time by then. With fewer and fewer people being marked, they would only be in greater danger. What is that? But after they came here, they suddenly saw something strange and shocking behind the tombstone of the tomb of the lowly servant. It was a grey coffin, very simple, and looked like it was made of wood. It was only the size of an ordinary coffin. If you didn't look carefully, you would even ignore it. But Zhang Zizai definitely remembered that when they were comprehending the tomb of the lowly servant, this small grey coffin did not exist. Now it suddenly appeared. It can only be said that it should have landed during this period. It is estimated that it is the same batch as the bloody demon corpse, but it did not land in the tomb of the ancient demon Tongtian, but stayed here. Is this the tomb of the lowly servant? Is it the coffin of that lowly servant? Is there a demon corpse inside? Li Zixiao asked several questions in succession. I don't know, you will know when you open it, Zhang Zizai said. If there is a demon corpse, it should be much smaller than other demon corpses. Don't open it, who knows what dangers there will be. You should start. Shen Xiao is still afraid of death. She stared at Zhang Zizai, meaning that she finally found a quiet place and had to quickly open the door of evolution. At this time, she can no longer care about so much. For the time being, Li Zixiao and the others can barely believe that at this critical moment of life and death, it is meaningless to keep a secret. Ye Zhang Zizai nodded. He had already started to activate the black dragon-shaped key in his hand and began to open the door of evolution. If he was lucky, it would take a quarter of an hour to open it. Once it was opened, the three of them would be able to escape. It was just this process. It was estimated that 30,000 people would die. It was too cruel to think about it. I couldn't understand why the group of people in the golden roulette in the sky did this. This was equivalent to destroying the young generation of tens of thousands of totem worlds. They were all dead. Such a huge fault would last at least hundreds of years. Now Zhang Zizai could only want the three of them to survive. Now every breath of time was very precious. When it was quiet, everyone's breathing could be heard. In fact, everyone was very nervous. Just when Zhang Zizai was about to open the door to the evolution world, suddenly, the world shook again. They looked up and saw a huge blood-colored demon corpse crossing over from the blood river. There were more than a dozen black demon corpses around them. They had green faces and fangs, and their blood-red eyes stared at Zhang Zizai and the three of them. From the look of the blood-colored demon corpse, they clearly came here for Zhang Zizai. There were also many geniuses from the major totem worlds traveling with the blood demon corpse, but they didn't need to flee because they were all above the 7th level of the Tianyuan realm. They followed the blood demon corpse and waited for good fortune in a safe situation. Even so, they were still some distance away from the blood demon corpse. It's someone from the hidden dragon realm. The blood demon corpse seems to have set its sights on these three people. For them, he actually took action himself. Then these three guys will die without regrets. Soon, thousands of people appeared. They all followed the blood demon corpse. Among them, Zhang Fanchen was here. When he found that they didn't need to escape, he stayed nearby. The damned people couldn't live, but they didn't have to worry about their lives at all. Zhang Zizai frowned deeply. He didn't expect it to come so quickly, and the blood demon corpse really set its sights on him. In this case, how could there be time to open the door of evolution, and even now there was no time to turn around and escape. Now, you are dead, right? Zhang Fanchen hid behind the blood demon corpse and couldn't help but cover his mouth and laugh. You will suffer for your own sins, Princess Shenjiao said with disdain. There were probably many people who thought the same as them. After all, seeing Zhang Zizai's gains, most people would be jealous, especially since they thought Zhang Zizai did not have the strength to protect these treasures. This was the most fatal moment. Li Zixiao and the others looked miserable. Now they were completely unable to help. Not to mention the bloody demon corpse, even any of the dozen demon corpses could not be stopped by their 9-dragon battle formation. If they insisted on stopping them, they might all die together. Go. Li Zixiao hurriedly urged them. He wanted to try to intercept for Zhang Zizai. I can't go. Seeing the bloody demon corpse's eyes locked on him, Zhang Zizai felt numb on his head. He was now extremely cold, and the knife on his head had almost cut his neck. In the flash of lightning, he looked back and saw the small grey coffin. Never mind. He tried his best to save the situation. He flashed to the grey coffin and took out the blood-red tripod he got from the servant's tomb. Then he used all his strength to push the coffin door. Unexpectedly, the coffin door was not closed at all. He flew out with a slight push. Buzz. After the coffin door flew out, grey air lingered inside. Zhang Zizai was about to look inside when suddenly a person stood up straight from inside, looking even more like a zombie, which frightened Zhang Zizai so much that his hair stood up. A closer look revealed that this figure was different from the demon corpse. He was only the size of an ordinary person, and he was wearing a very worn grey robe. Everything on his body was grey, including his open eyes. He was surrounded by grey air, mysterious and eerie. Unlike other demon corpses, he did not have a green face and fangs, but had the same face as ordinary people, but he was very old, with wrinkles on his face, and all his teeth had fallen out. Zhang Zizai could not care about anything else and directly put the blood-colored small tripod in front of his eyes. He was thinking about whether he could control this guy. Maybe he had the power to protect himself. He expected that this blood-red small tripod could emit black light like other black small tripods, but he was disappointed. The servant did not move at all. Then, he suddenly stretched out his hand and did something that made Zhang Zizai shudder. He gently pushed away the bloody little tripod in Zhang Zizai's hand, and then touched his head, like an elder, teaching a younger generation. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 677. The touch on the top of the head was cold, which was the terrifying part. Zhang Zizai's hair stood on end, but the next moment, his palm had left Zhang Zizai's body, and then suddenly passed him and rushed towards the bloody demon corpse. When the bloody demon corpse saw the grey-robed demon corpse, it seemed very angry for a while. He roared to the sky and ordered all the demon corpses to attack with him. However, after seeing the grey-robed demon corpse, those demon corpses actually shrank back and dared not move forward. Bang! The bloody demon corpse threw away the demon corpses around it, and then roared. In the shocked eyes of the people, the two demon corpses collided with each other and started fighting. They all fought with the power of flesh and blood. What people could not imagine was that the grey-robed demon corpse had such a small body, but it actually had terrifying power and a speed that surpassed the bloody demon corpse. For a while, it was hard to separate from the bloody demon corpse. Boom boom boom. In this peak-level battle, everyone dodged quickly, and it seemed that the whole world was shaking. People were stunned, and Zhang Zizai was the same. It seems that he is not trying to protect me, but he has a grudge against this bloody demon corpse. Zhang Zizai thought so. After all, his bloody small tripod was useless. For the time being, it seems that they are evenly matched, and neither side can do anything about the other's strength, and ordinary demon corpses can only crawl on the ground at this time. Zhang Zizai felt a hot look, and turned his head to see that it was indeed Zhang Fanchen. He was going to watch the show and wait for Zhang Zizai to die tragically, but he didn't expect to be disappointed again. Now, Zhang Zizai may not die. But he was also a little depressed. Why can't this bloody small tripod control the demon corpse like other black small tripods? Or is there any other effect? He took out the two bloody small tripods and put them in his hands. According to reason, the value of these two small tripods must be higher. Why are they useless? What he thought was that if he could control the two demon corpses that were fighting now, then he could definitely walk sideways in this ancient demon tomb. What Zhang Fanchen, a peerless genius. He still had to kneel down in front of the demon corpse. It's a pity that this blood-colored small tripod is useless. When he was depressed, he suddenly found that the mouths of the two blood-colored small tripods seemed to be a little different. One of them was partially convex, and the other was partially concave. Looking closely, the convex part and the concave part seemed to fit together perfectly. Is there a mystery in this? He had never thought of this situation before. After discovering it, he naturally couldn't wait to connect the two blood-colored small tripods together. Sure enough, with a click, the two blood-colored small tripods were combined together. Buzz! Suddenly, there was a vibration, and the combined blood-colored small tripod broke away from Zhang Zizai's palm and began to rotate in the air. During the rotation process, the reliefs and patterns on it began to change and merge. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly, something in the space jade pendant was vibrating strongly. Before Zhang Zizai could react, a small black tripod actually rushed out of the space jade pendant and hovered next to the blood-colored tripod in the blink of an eye. The change has begun. Zhang Zizai realized that this was probably the real effect of the blood-colored tripod. Only when two small tripods were gathered together could such a change occur. What's going on? Shen Xiao suddenly exclaimed. Zhang Zizai looked back and saw 5 small black tripods flying from her body. At the same time, 5 small black tripods also flew from Ling Xian's body. Li Zixiao, Du Guya and Zhang Yaokan all had black tripods flying over. For a while, more than a dozen small black tripods were rotating around the blood-colored tripod. Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment. He was wondering if this change could make all the small black tripods fly over. Facts proved that his guess was correct. At this time, he looked up and saw that many people exclaimed. There were many small black tripods flying in front of him, and he didn't know whose they were. He just saw Zhang Fanchen struggling to grab his black tripod, but he was dragged away directly until the black tripod broke free from his hands and flew to Zhang Zizai's eyes in the blink of an eye. The black tripods were mainly gathered in the hands of geniuses of the 8th and 9th levels of Tianyuan realm. They were not worried about their lives at this time, so they were all near the ancient demon Tongtian tomb. Zhang Zizai saw that the black tripods next to the bloody tripod were getting older and more. During the 30 breaths of the battle between the two demon corpses, 110 black tripods gathered around the bloody tripod. It can almost be concluded that the black tripods obtained from the previously opened demon tomb have all arrived in front of Zhang Zizai. People watched this scene in shock. In people's sight, the black tripod suddenly gathered towards the center. At the same time, all the tripods collided together, and they broke into pieces at once, turning into thick black smoke and bloody smoke merging together. A terrifying breath was born in it. Many people had a premonition of the birth of the treasure and had already come here. For example, Zhang Fanchen and others. Their intuition told them that these small tripods gathered together would probably become a real treasure. Their premonition was correct. In fact, all this took shape faster than they imagined. In an instant, the mist suddenly disappeared, and a large black tripod appeared in front of Zhang Zizai. The relief of this large tripod was the same as the giant tripod outside, but the interior under the mouth of the tripod was all blood red, like a sea of blood. Buzz. The cauldron vibrated, and an invisible wave of waves vibrated. When the wave touched the demon corpse, Zhang Zizai suddenly saw that the blood light in the demon corpse's eyes disappeared instantly. All the demon corpses, including the bloody demon corpse and the grey-robed demon corpse, became numb for a moment. In the numbness, the grey-robed demon corpse returned to the coffin, and the coffin door was closed again, while the other demon corpses crossed the blood river and headed towards the location of the ancient demon Tongtian tomb. Judging from this direction, it was obvious that they were also going to return to the coffin. It seemed that the crisis was completely resolved. The red light on Zhang Zizai's head also disappeared at this time. This means that he should be considered to have escaped death this time. The key is that this cauldron is still rotating, and everyone else rushed towards the side with very fiery eyes. When everyone wanted to snatch it, Zhang Zizai was the first to get the moon. He didn't care about anything and just cut his finger and dripped his blood on the cauldron. When he first occupied the divine talisman, he basically inherited it in this way. When his blood touched the cauldron, a loud voice shocked him. Demon Lord Cauldron. The four big words in the voice shook Zhang Zizai's mind, and it was deafening for a while. He fell into a dark world. In that darkness, an extremely huge black cauldron stood between heaven and earth. Inside the cauldron was a sea of blood, and countless corpses were floating in the sea of blood. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 678. The blood-dripping demon Lord Cauldron was Zhang Zizai's subconscious thought. This treasure obviously surpassed the Kun-level totem divine weapon, and was even more than the Qian-level totem divine weapon. He didn't know how to subdue it anyway, and this was his only way. In the dripping blood, the demon Lord Cauldron seemed to really accept his control. He still stayed beside the demon Lord Cauldron, while other people who tried to get close and wanted to get a share of Zhang Zizai's here were directly shaken away by the vast power of the demon Lord Cauldron. The closer they got, the farther they flew. This was obviously a kind of repulsion. After the demon Lord Cauldron shook everyone away, it continued to float in front of Zhang Zizai's eyes. In the dark, Zhang Zizai felt that he and the demon Lord Cauldron were involved. This was a feeling of blood connection, a bit like the relationship between Zhang Zizai and the Source Beast with the Beast Control Talisman. However, my understanding and control over the demon Lord Cauldron is almost nothing, which means that I am not a real aviation. At most I have the right to keep it. Next, as expected, the demon Lord Cauldron came in front of him, quickly shrank in front of him, and then seemed to melt into his body. The relief pattern of the demon Lord Cauldron was completely presented in his skin, as if his body had turned into the demon Lord Cauldron, but then the cauldron pattern began to disappear, and the demon Lord Cauldron completely disappeared from people's sight. In fact, Zhang Zizai knew that the demon Lord Cauldron did not disappear at all, but existed in his body. Maybe if Zhang Zizai needed to use it, he could show its power. Anyway, so far, Zhang Zizai didn't know what specific function the demon Lord Cauldron had. Other people got up at this time, and thousands of people stared at Zhang Zizai, with different eyes, some envious, some puzzled, and some greedy, full of murderous intent. That thing just now is probably a dry-level totem weapon. It may even be more than that. It may be a weapon of the gods. I saw him dripping blood, and then the cauldron entered his body. It was obvious that he had been controlled by him. The value of this cauldron is enough to drive people crazy. People looked at Zhang Zizai with fiery eyes. Most of the people present were above the 7th level of Tianyuan realm. If these thousands of young people entered the origin continent, they would all be at the level of Fu Wang, comparable to Tianya and others. They noticed that after the Demon Lord Cauldron appeared, the most terrifying demon corpses had basically returned to the coffins. All the coffins had been sealed, and at least in the short term, it seemed that they would not be opened again. In this ancient demon tomb, the adventurers who came in were left again. The visit of the demon corpse was a fatal test. Although the Demon Lord Cauldron did not appear too late, at least nearly 20,000 young people were missing and suddenly disappeared. In this test, these people were undoubtedly losers. They not only completely lost their chances, but also their lives. There are more than 10,000 totem warriors below the 6th level of Tianyuan realm. It should be Zhang Zizhe who saved their lives, but they are fleeing everywhere and may not know it. Who is the lucky one in the test? The answer is very obvious. Zhang Zizhe, who has obtained the Demon Lord Cauldron and has a rich harvest, and even his own strength has been continuously improved, is the winner of this test. Facing the winner, more mediocre people rely on the advantage of numbers and are inevitably fearless, so too many people stand up at this time, staring at Zhang Zizhe. Among them are many people from the central totem world. Zhang Fanchen, whose eyes are fiery and scarlet, is one of them. People who were supposed to watch Zhang Zizhe die tragically, but saw him survive and get great fortune again. For Zhang Fanchen now, every word he said to Zhang Zizhe before was a mockery of himself. If he was not too proud, how could he be ashamed at this time? Sister, we have to take action and snatch the things. If we are so passive, we will get more and more trouble. Zhang Fanchen gritted his teeth. Are you afraid of this person? Asked Princess Shenjiao. That's not the case, it's just that this person is very lucky. The one who is really difficult for them is Li Zixiao. His luck combined with Li Zixiao's strength is really hard to recover. Then how can we do it? It's very simple, cause a commotion, and let everyone break their 9-dragon battle formation together. Zhang Fanchen narrowed his eyes and said. In fact, many people have the same idea. During the entire process of the ancient demon tomb, Zhang Zizhe got too many good things and took the lead step by step. If they don't stop it quickly at this time, there will always be a time when they can't control Zhang Zizhe. The hidden dragon realm still has the 9-dragon battle formation. Should we suppress it? If this goes on, no one will have a chance. More and more people are talking about it. At least more than 3,000 people look at Zhang Zizhe with greedy eyes. Many people know how much he has got. People are eager to move. Even if Li Zixiao and others are around Zhang Zizhe, they can't suppress their gradually rising desire. Zhang Zizhe was soon surrounded. Now we just need a leader, which is equivalent to the water spreading to the edge of the dam. As long as someone takes the lead, it will immediately form a tendency to burst the dam. In this situation, Zhang Fanchen signaled, and a young man named Zhang Qi under his seat received the order and suddenly rushed towards Zhang Zizhe, shouting, Zhang Zizhe, that big tripod does not belong to you, hand it over quickly. When he made his move, more people followed him. Everyone rushed to join in. For a moment, it was like a swarm of fish. When Zhang Qi attacked Zhang Zizhe, people who were afraid of falling behind and losing their chances all took action. At this time, they even dared to attack Li Zixiao. Li Zixiao had expected them to do this. In the final analysis, they still felt that Zhang Zizhe was not qualified to possess such a divine object. After someone took the lead, at least 300 people surrounded him instantly. Each of them was very strong. Of course, because the space was narrow after the encirclement, very few of the 300 people could really squeeze in and face Zhang Zizhe. Go, Li Zixiao did not retreat. The 9 of them quickly formed a 9-dragon battle formation, which expanded instantly. Dense dragon patterns entangled everyone's body. Zhang Zizhe once again received the power of the heavenly source from the 8 of them. This was the most explosive time for his cultivation. At this juncture, he had forgotten everything. Only by fighting could he keep his treasure. In this case, there was no other choice. Kill. The 9 of them had such a powerful momentum that it was hard to imagine. This explosion, in the crowded battlefield, instantly blew away the people at the innermost layer, including Jonki. There are still 3 chapters tonight at 2200 hours. There was an unexpected power outage during the day, and my laptop just ran out of power. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 679. In an instant, Zhang Zizai faced too many attacks. Even if there were others who helped Zhang Zizai intercept him, they would still be unable to withstand it at all, because everyone's purpose was very clear, which was to rob Zhang Zizai of his belongings. A few dozen people are okay, but once hundreds or thousands of people join in, the threat posed can be fatal in an instant. Especially Zhang Fanchen, who had been hiding among the crowd, and when Li Zixiao didn't notice him, he suddenly rushed out and struck Zhang Zizai's chest with a palm. Die! The power of that palm shook the heaven and the earth. Zhang Zizai had just dealt with the others, but he didn't expect that this person with such status would want to make a sneak attack. Zhang Fanchen had already formed a fatal move as soon as he arrived, giving Zhang Zizai no chance of survival. It seems that it was Zhang Zizai's understanding and creation that made him feel the crisis on the first day in the Well of God's domain. Fortunately, at this time, Zhang Zizai's immortality talisman had reactivated and should be able to save his life. The immortal talisman is the fastest to take effect, and from this point on, the other talisman will probably be effective soon as well. Zhang Fanchen, by the time Li Zixiao and the others saw it, it was already too late. Zhang Fanchen's ghost appeared and pressed his palm directly to Zhang Zizai's chest. Seeing that Zhang Zizai, who was of a much lower level, was about to be shattered to pieces in front of him, in the light of the calcium carbide fire, even Zhang Zizai himself did not expect that, just like him, the former totem divine soldier was like the human Emperor Bel. The demonic cauldron suddenly appeared and surrounded Zhang Zizai. Zhang Fanchen's attack directly hit the demonic cauldron. Buzz! At that moment, Zhang Fanchen's face turned red. When the giant cauldron shook, he flew backwards and hit a long distance. During this period, he knocked dozens of people away and made those people vomit blood. The Demon Lord's cauldron shows off its power. The power of the Demon Lord cauldron was simply terrifying. Such a scene shocked the whole audience. Originally, people thought Zhang Zizai was dead, but what happened was even more suffocating. It seemed that with the Demon Lord cauldron protecting him, even if Zhang Zizai can't actively use it, he doesn't seem to be able to die. To put it harshly, it is equivalent to having an extra carapace. Zhang Fanchen's attack just now was enough to kill several Zhang Zizai, but it was completely blocked by the cauldron, and it even seemed to have a backlash effect. If this big cauldron has always been. In this case, who can do anything to him? In the shocked eyes of the people, several more people appeared in front of Zhang Zizai and attacked one after another, but almost all of them were blocked by the Demon Lord cauldron. Zhang Zizai was almost unscathed. Such a scene is simply depressing. This young man's magic and tenacity have already broken the hearts of many people. Among them, the one who collapsed the most was probably Zhang Fanchen. He was completely confused. Up to this moment, his whole body was still in shock and his arms were still numb. All this told him that everything he did was like what a joke. Attack those 2 women. They are Zhang Zizai's women. If you deal with them, you can threaten Zhang Zizai. When these people found that Zhang Zizai was difficult to deal with, they immediately changed their thinking and found a new breakthrough. After all, Shen Xiao and Ling Xian were now completely the weak points in the 9 dragons battle formation. Zhang Zizai was really speechless. It was reasonable to deal with him, but they all flocked to Ling Xian and Shen Xiao. This was very despicable. Now the situation is completely opposite. Except for Zhang Zizai, who has no one to care about, everyone else is under the attack of the violent storm. The situation of the 9 of them is very dangerous now. Each of them faces several times the opponent. Let Zhang Zizai hand over the cauldron. Hand it over and you won't die. After all, this is not the action of a few people, but more than 1,000 people, and people are constantly joining in. No one is willing to take revenge from Li Zixiao in the future. Burning with people's greed, the 9 of them, except for Zhang Zizai, were in dire straits. For a while, even with the 9 dragons battle formation in hand, the entire team was still rapidly collapsing, especially Shen Xiao and Ling Xian. Directly surrounded by more than 30 people, and even the 9th level of Tianyuan realm was lurking around, preparing to kidnap them. Chaotic situations mean opportunities for everyone. Although Zhang Zizai couldn't be beaten to death, the key was that with his current strength, he couldn't change anything among such a chaotic and rough crowd. After the demonic corpse returned, it turned out to be so changed, which was beyond his expectation. Seeing the 8 of them completely engulfed by the violent storm, Zhang Zizai had a headache and was very angry. You go first. Li Zixiao saw that he was okay for the time being and said quickly. He had the 9 dragons battle formation in hand, and he was able to move widely, and basically few people could block his attacks. If he hadn't been holding on and protecting Shen Xiao and Ling Xian, the 9 of them would have fallen long ago. Roll. He rushed into the crowd and charged through the crowd. With the blessing of the 9 dragons battle formation, he had a combat power comparable to the 8th level of the Tianyuan realm. With the protection of the Demon Lord's cauldron, he just broke through a bloody path. Appeared next to Shen Xiao and Ling Xian. At this time, they were being pulled against each other by many people. If others were not competing, the 2 of them would have been controlled long ago. But now the situation is even worse. If everyone fights for it, they will be easily cut into pieces. Come here. Zhang Zizai used the 10,000 June world-breaking fist to directly create a passage and punch several guys in front of him away. He didn't even see who these people were. Anyway, everyone he saw flew away. Finally, he reached them. There were dozens of people staring at him. Zhang Zizai appeared beside them in the blink of an eye, holding one of them with one hand. When his body was very close to them, the range of the Demon Lord cauldron seemed to surround them all. For a moment, all the attacks made Zhang Zizai bounce back. Those who wanted to hold them hostage were stunned at this time. Zhang Zizai didn't expect that the Demon Lord cauldron would be so effective. He finally protected them and he was relieved. You finally realized your wish. After turning his head, he saw Shen Xiao panting and looking at him unhappily. Zhang Zizai was hugging her waist and letting her stay close to his body. Otherwise, the range of the Demon Lord cauldron was so large that he must stay close to protect her. What wish? The girl's chest rose and fell, and Zhang Zizai couldn't help but take a look. Hold her left and right, Shen Xiao glared. Sorry, I couldn't log into the backend today. It might be my network problem. I will update it now after finishing writing. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 680. Oh, haha. Zhang Zizai pretended to smile and protected them, feeling relieved. He glanced at Ling Xian again and saw that she had her head lowered and her body was twisting unaccustomedly. It seemed that she was still not used to being held by others. Now is a special time, don't you mind? Zhang Zizai coughed and said seriously. Yeah, it's okay, she nodded slightly, her face a little rosy. Do you still know that it is a special time? Shen Xiao wanted to pinch him. After all, everyone was still watching eagerly. There were still some people among them who did not believe in evil and continued to attack them. They were directly knocked away by the Demon Lord's cauldron. On the other side, Li Zixiao felt relieved when he saw Zhang Zizai's situation. He and 5 other people quickly gathered together. The 6 of them were relatively strong and could withstand many attacks at once. After all, Their single strength, the overall combat effectiveness is still very amazing despite the increase in the 9 dragons battle formation. The situation seems to have stabilized, and many geniuses who are hiding in the dark and preparing to enter the market later may have no choice but to despair. At least Zhang Ziyi has no breakthrough here. Li Zixiao and the others are all ruthless characters. They have narrowed their scope so that there are only dozens of opponents facing them at the same time, and it is difficult for just a few dozen people to pose a real threat to them. On the other hand, Zhang Ziyi, holding 2 beauties in his arms, was as carefree as a normal person in the battlefield, which made others envious. This person has 1 foot in 2 boats. Don't you know how to write the word shame? Princess Shenjiao said intolerably. As a beauty who confuses all living beings, she feels that perfect love is one-to-one love between husband and concubine, not Zhang Ziyi. Zhang Fanqian's face was gloomy and he didn't speak. He also had the same surname as Zhang. In this ancient demon tomb, Zhang Ziyi almost completely overshadowed him and stole all the limelight that should have belonged to him. Do you still need to work in vain? You still can't do anything to me. I got this through my own efforts. You must know who gave it to me. You should also know whether it can be taken away. With a smile on his face, Zhang Ziyi shuttled through the attacks of countless people, and the demon lord Cauldron allowed him to come and go as he pleased. This feeling is really good. I feel like I have a copper head and an iron arm, while others are stabbing me with wooden swords. How can I succeed? There is no itch at all. Until then, the feudal geniuses gradually stopped and looked at everything with dull faces. In their eyes, they were filled with a sense of powerlessness towards Zhang Ziyi. They were still enthusiastic before, but now their faces were very ugly, as if they had eaten dog shit. Still not letting go, Shen Xiao said coquettishly. No, I can't joke with your lives until the danger is over, Zhang Ziyi said seriously, hugging him tighter. You're right, we should hug them tighter to protect them, Zhang Yaokan said with a smile, and a group of them also came to Zhang Ziyi's side and confronted everyone. Now people are all staring at each other. The danger of the demon corpse has been eliminated. They don't know what will happen next. After stopping at this time, in addition to being extremely depressed, everyone is also quite stunned, because the ancient demon tomb is so big. Are all the tests in it already over? So far, all the tests have been inexplicable, especially the demon corpse section, which has directly reduced the number of nearly 20,000 people. The life and death of these 20,000 people is enough to make people feel horrified when they calm down and think about it. Because they are not sure whether it will be their turn next in such a ghost place. I didn't take action just now, and I didn't mean to fight for it. Deep in the crowd, Xuanhuan of the Sword Soul Totem world said. Why? Zhang Xuanhuan asked. He and Xuanhuan were similar in age, but one level different in realm. He always asks Xuanhuan as his target. He solved the problem of demonic corpses, which is equivalent to saving the lives of tens of thousands of people. In our Sword Soul Totem world, there are 11 people who are less than the 7th level of Tianyuan realm. They are all alive. It is Zhang Ziyi who saved them. We really can't take action against our savior's life, Xuanhuan said. It makes sense, Zhang Xuanhuan nodded. It's just a pity that there are more than 10,000 people present, and there are too few people who think the same as them. As for what changes will happen next? Seeing that they could not compete for Zhang Ziyi's treasures, many people had already left here and were ready to explore the ancient demon tomb again. The demonic corpse has returned. Maybe, the ancient demonic tomb has changed now, and a greater good fortune is waiting for them. Zhang Ziyi thought the same thing. He felt that the test of the ancient demon tomb was definitely not over. He thought of the geniuses who had been swallowed up by the demonic corpses, and his heart still felt a little cold. How much more terrifying would the test here be? In other words, is this really the test of the ancient gods? Just when he was confused, changes suddenly occurred. If understanding the demon tomb is the first round of test, Resisting the demon corpse is the second round of test. It seems that the third round of test is coming soon. Change comes from the golden will of nature. Zhang Zizai originally thought that there were ancient gods above, and it was impossible for the beings above to appear. He never expected that at this moment, two figures actually left the golden roulette wheel. They came down from above, like a sun and a full moon descended downwards, and the dazzling light attracted everyone's attention for a while. Suddenly, the dazzling light of January appeared above people's heads. Amidst the noise and shock of the people, the light turned into two figures. They turned out to be two very young figures. They gradually appeared. Now in front of people's eyes. Meet the ancient gods. I don't know who started, but when someone reacted and knelt on the ground and shouted, the geniuses from all the major totem worlds knelt on the ground and shouted in unison. Everyone's face was very pious, full of awe of the power of God. Even Li Zixiao and the others were half kneeling on the ground, shouting excitedly along with the crowd, so much so that Zhang Zizai was startled. Legend has it that an ancient god would come directly to the well of God's domain, but now, has the ancient god really appeared? To be honest, he had already taken a look. He was a little surprised by such a young ancient god. The ancient god in his mind did not seem to be like this, but after all, this was an existence that came down from the golden wheel, which meant that they controlled. If you count everything in the ancient demon tomb like this, they are probably the ancient gods. After all, Zhang Zizai was also a person who had been to the ancient gods, so he calmed down a little. When everyone knelt down, he was a little lazy and quietly sat on the ground, thinking in his heart, there are so many people, ancient gods, God should not notice me. After all, he had a natural aversion to kneeling. Zhang Zizai, are you crazy? Shen Xiao saw him sitting down and was stunned for a moment. How could there be such a bold person? She widened her eyes and pinched Zhang Zizai, but Zhang Zizai remained indifferent and said, don't worry, it's okay. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 681. He quietly raised his head and could see the two ancient gods clearly. The one on the left seemed to have been transformed by the scorching Sunday. That was a man who looked to be less than 20 years old. He was wearing a light golden robe and looked like graceful and luxurious. The most impressive thing is the pattern of a sun between his eyebrows. It is definitely the top totem. It looks radiant to the world. This man's aura is indeed amazing. Anyway, it is countless higher than the little holy emperor Zhang Fanshan. Times, he really deserves to be called an ancient god. He looks so awe-inspiring. The goddess on the right is transformed by the moon. She is wearing a moon-white robe. Although the robe is wide, it cannot hide her exquisite figure. This person reminds Zhang Zizai of the first god Xuanhuan. She and Xuanhuan, the first god, has a kind of appearance, graceful, holy and upright, and as mysterious as the silver moon. To be honest, it is very tempting. Everyone wants to know what kind of secret garden is hidden under this wide moon-white robe. Unfortunately, she is a goddess. They can only be in awe but not blaspheme in their hearts. Most people don't dare to take a peek at her. They can only secretly yearn for her in their hearts, and then sigh that the goddess is so beautiful. When comparing women, sometimes temperament is more important than appearance. For example, Princess Shenjiao's facial features, appearance, and figure are almost perfect, but the goddess is not so perfect. However, when compared, there is a kind of grain of rice. Comparing the light and the bright moon, it turns out that the level of life is more attractive than appearance. For example, if Shen Xiao and Ling Xian could become gods, their charm would definitely be no worse than that of the moonlight goddess. Such gods and goddesses suddenly appear, and most people feel a little overwhelmed. Occasionally I looked up, feeling extremely awe in my heart. There was probably no one else in the audience who was still admiring the beauty of this goddess like Zhang Zizai. At this time, the dazzling gaze of the male god actually turned into reality, and he began to scan everyone. Everywhere the light went turned into daylight, as if all the monsters could not escape. His loud voice began to sound everywhere, echoed in one's ears. The demon tomb test has been conducted for 2 rounds so far. I have seen the performance of each of you and recorded it. People were shocked. It turned out to be the ancient god, so many people existed, and he could actually remember everyone's performance. Zhang Zizai was stunned for a moment by these words. He was wondering, if this was the case, would he have to kneel down? But it's still a bit awkward when I think about it. He was still a little confused. Was the man in front of him really an ancient god? Why do I feel like I am a little worse than the ancient god in my heart? He didn't know what the difference was, but this one was probably very strong. In the divine realm, there are also sects of gods. The male god spoke again, his eyes scanning again. No one dared to look or say more, so they could only listen. I come from the top sect in the divine realm, the Holy Emperor Tianmen. The Supreme Holy Emperor Ancient God in my sect personally created the Holy Emperor Totem world. You should have heard about it. After these words were uttered, Zhang Fanchen and the others couldn't help but laugh, and they were ecstatic. It turned out that this was the ancient god who served under the ancient god called the Holy Emperor. The Heavenly Gate of the Saint Emperor is a place that everyone in the Saint Emperor Totem world is fascinated by. It has also been Zhang Fanchen's dream for countless years. He did not expect that this dream would be right in front of him. He was filled with excitement, but he couldn't speak. It would be very impolite to interrupt the ancient god. The male god from the Holy Emperor Tianmen continued, "We, the Saint Emperor Tianmen, will recruit a disciple in the Well of God's domain this time. The next step is the real test. The only one who astonishes me is the Holy Emperor Tianmen. Only disciples are qualified to fly to the divine realm. You should do your best. If no one reaches the standard, then I don't mind returning empty-handed. After all, our Holy Emperor Tianmen is the gathering place for the top beings." People stretched their ears to listen and took note of every word he said, even his tone. There is only one quota, and there are so many people. Who does this quota belong to? Many people looked at Zhang Fanchen because he came from the Holy Emperor Totem world. He was the #1 genius in the Well of God's domain. Regardless of Zhang Zizai's troubles, he was the most promising person. After saying this, the male god took a step back and looked at the Moonlight Goddess. The Moonlight Goddess nodded slightly. Her tone was much softer. She faced the people below and said in a soft voice, "Our Eternal Night Star C will only recruit one person this time. It depends on who can impress us. For now, there is no such person among you." After she said that, it seemed like it was over. The two of them looked at each other, and the male god suddenly laughed and said, "Okay, the next level is called 9 Deaths. Only the 2 people who survive to the end can survive. What about the others? I'm sorry, after entering the tomb of the ancient demon, unless you fly to the divine realm, you will be the sole servant of the ancient demon here." This sentence came out of nowhere, and many people were still thinking about it with smiles on their faces. However, when they truly understood the meaning of this sentence, they suddenly became stunned. Everyone's face was confused. People kept asking people around them for confirmation, trying to make sure they heard it wrong. But when everyone felt they heard it wrong, it just meant that they heard it right. "What do you mean?" Shen Xiao asked Zhang Zizai with a pale face. "It means that only the 2 chosen people can live. The others have to stay here forever, which is equivalent to death." Zhang Zizai was sure that he heard correctly. After he entered the ancient demon tomb, he felt something unknown in his heart. "I had a premonition, I didn't expect it. What kind of ancient god is this? It's just a pervert. Tens of thousands of people, only 2 can survive, Is this an ancient god or a devil? The people who are still alive now are almost suffocated. They look at the people around them, and almost no one thinks that if only two people can survive, they will have one. What a joke, Li Zixiao gritted his teeth, his face was already angry. He has so many brothers and sisters, but only two people can survive? These two people who are so holy are ancient gods. At this moment, it was as if there was a mountain pressing down on people's heads, and everyone was heavy and breathless. Zhang Zizai was the same. He could be said to be very depressed. Fortunately, he was thinking whether he could escape from this ghost place through the evolution realm, but the trouble was that if he left the evolution realm from here, he would return here from the evolution realm. He would either stay in the evolution realm for the rest of his life, or die in this demon tomb. Anyway, it was impossible to return to the origin continent. Just when he was depressed, suddenly a heavy pressure was pressed on him. He was hung up by an invisible force and fell heavily again. When he fell, his knees hit the ground hard. Then, someone above my head said with a smile, "You don't seem to know how to kneel, I'm just giving you some instructions, remember it next time." It was the voice of that male god. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 682. This sudden heavy blow did make Zhang Zizai a little unresponsive. After he reacted, the ground below had already cracked. Zhang Zizai was now shaking all over, and he felt a kind of blood boiling. In people's minds, this person is an ancient god. Everyone he said to Zhang Zizai was simply a death sentence. He didn't even kneel to the ancient god, how audacious. Now seeing this scene, most people have already gloated over it. They were worried that Zhang Zizai would perform too well, grab the best fortune, and get a place to survive, but now they see that he has offended the ancient god himself, which is basically completely finished. No matter how many tombstones you comprehend and how many benefits you get, what's the use? Once you become brain dead, everything will be destroyed. They saw with their own eyes that the ancient god descended on Zhang Zizai's head, with an indifferent expression, looking down at Zhang Zizai. In the silent eyes of the crowd, Zhang Zizai raised his head and his eyes collided with that of the ancient god. What he felt was naturally oppression. If you have no respect in your heart, you must be a lawless person. You dare to look up at me with such eyes, which means you are not convinced by me, the shining man asked. Zhang Zizai could only say that if this person was the ancient god, then he was indeed a little indulgent. But, the ancient god is so high and mighty, and he would argue with himself in this way? Ancient god, calm down, my brother has worshipped the ancient god since he was a child. The reason why he didn't kneel was because he didn't expect to see the ancient god, so he was excited and forgot everything. Zhang Yaokan had an idea and hurriedly excused Zhang Zizai. In fact, he had already been sweating in his heart. Unexpectedly, the ancient god swept Zhang Yaokan away with a light sweep, and he rolled on the ground for several times, with a bruised face. His eyes locked onto Zhang Zizai again, and he said, he himself didn't explain, so there's no need for irrelevant people to explain. While speaking, he raised his palm, and when his eyes suddenly turned cold, he suddenly slapped Zhang Zizai's forehead, saying, after this boy has been taught a lesson, he still has no repentance, so I. What he meant was that during the time he appeared above Zhang Zizai's head, he never heard Zhang Zizai kneel down and beg for mercy, or at least show a gesture of repentance, so he punished Zhang Zizai. His move was actually beyond people's expectations. After all, it was inappropriate for the ancient god to come and kill in person. If he was really angry, the legend was not a record, and the ancient god only needed a look or a thought to kill countless people. Boom! It was a palm condensed by the sun's light, and suddenly it was like countless mountains, pressing down on Zhang Zizai's head. This move came suddenly, and the breath of death instantly enveloped his whole body. Zhang Zizai was still confused from beginning to end, and everything was over. Boom. What was even more unexpected was that at the moment when the ancient god slapped Zhang Zizai's head, the demon lord cauldron actually appeared again, floating around him, and suddenly appeared, and actually blocked the palm of the ancient god. Buzz. The palm of the ancient god dissipated, and Zhang Zizai was suppressed and sunk deep into the ground, which was enough to show that the power of this palm was stronger than all the attacks he had endured, but what was incredible was that Zhang Zizai was unscathed. Such a reality made Zhang Zizai himself unable to figure it out. This demon lord cauldron was given to him by the ancient god. Then, how could he not break a treasure given to mortals by him? The only explanation is that he is not an ancient god. As soon as this thought came out, Zhang Zizai was extremely sure in his heart. Because he looked at it intently and found that this man was at most in the aura of the initial god realm, equivalent to a demigod. It was similar to the Holy Dragon Emperor and others. Such an existence can certainly crush Zhang Zizai, but it is definitely not a true god. After all, the two were so close, and he had attacked Zhang Zizai before. Whether he was a god, a demigod, or a true god, Zhang Zizai could still feel the difference. If he was not a god, then what right did he have to dominate everything? Or in other words, it might not be them who controlled all this. Zhang Zizai looked up and saw that there were indeed other figures on the golden roulette, indicating that these two were just here to pass on the message. In this way, he was really not an ancient god, and the woman from the eternal night star sea was not an ancient god either. Ancient god, why didn't you break the protection of the big tripod? Isn't that what the ancient god gave to Zhang Zizai? For a time, similar whispers were launched everywhere, and many people were very confused about this. There must be someone who can see the truth like Zhang Zizai. Of course, a true ancient god will definitely personally cultivate some geniuses who have a great chance of becoming an ancient god. That kind of genius in the god realm is not something that all of us in the totem world can compare to. Maybe these two are that kind of genius in the god realm. Even if they are not ancient gods, they are at least above the initial god realm. During the discussion, there were naturally many knowledgeable people. So what? It is only a matter of time before they become ancient gods. What is the difference between them and ancient gods now? Some people see it more clearly and know the significance of the identities of these two people. Zhang Zizai has offended this person now, and even made him embarrassed after taking action. Even if this person is not an ancient god, he is also a close disciple of the ancient god. In this way, Zhang Zizai is still equivalent to being finished. For this reason, there are still many people who gloat over his misfortune. But the male god did not continue to attack. He smiled coldly and did not look at Zhang Zizai again, as if this incident had not happened. Instead, he glanced at everyone and said, "You will understand what a life of 9 deaths is. Remember, the incomplete map is important to everyone. Can you keep your incomplete map?" After that, he finally flew onto the golden roulette wheel with the moonlight goddess. But after he disappeared, the pressure people faced did not disappear. People laughed at Zhang Zizai's stupidity of throwing away his capital, but they had to shift their attention to the so-called life of 9 deaths. "Are you okay?" Shen Xiao helped him up, his eyes slightly distressed. "It's okay. I knew these two guys were not ancient gods. You see, they can't do anything to me." Zhang Zizai laughed. "You still have the mood to laugh. It's not easy to get so much capital, but you destroyed it all by yourself. It's good that the ancient god didn't take back your tripod." Shen Xiao was a little speechless. She wanted to understand where this man got so much pride and self-esteem. He knelt down before and there were no such things.